Do you want to know how to make this? Stick around. Welcome to another episode of Natalia Con Gusto. It's my pleasure to be here with you once again, demystifying cocktails, spirits, and ingredients so that you can make better cocktails at home. Now, in today's episode, you are going to learn how to make an exquisite Pisco Sour with no bar tools, I promise, and you don't even have to make simple syrup. If you're ready to join me and you're ready to get started, go ahead and hit that like button. Also, make sure to subscribe. And while you're at it, go ahead and ding that bell because that will alert you every time there's a brand new video. For this cocktail, we will be using Pisco Portone. It now goes by the name Carvedo, so if you go to the liquor store and you don't find this exact labeling, it's still the same product. They just changed the name to better reflect the distillery from where it's made. If you've never tried Pisco before, you are in for a treat. This one comes from Peru. There are Piscos made in Chile as well. I'm just gonna leave it at that because both countries lay claim to Pisco and I am staying out of that fight. This one in particular comes from Peru. So we're gonna talk about Peruvian Pisco. Like I said, you are in for a real treat. This is one of the most purest spirits that you can ever find on the market. The reason I say that this is one of the purest spirits that you can find on the market, oh, look at that clarity, is because with Pisco, there are no additives. The only thing in here is the raw material, which is grapes. This entire thing came from grape juice and freshly pressed grape juice at that. There's no water added to it. You can see that there's no barrel aging added to it. There's no sugars added to it. There are no additives whatsoever to this. It is very, very pure. And this style of Pisco, coming from Pisco Portone, or now Carvedo Pisco, is a style of Pisco called Mosto Verde. It is the finest style of Pisco that you can find. What that means is that it was distilled from a partially fermented grape juice. This is, in fact, coming from wine, and it's coming from wine that was not fully fermented. There were still sugars left in the still when it was being distilled. And as we'll see when we take a sip of this, that distilling with some sugar still left in the still, that manifests itself in complexity, in a rich, velvety texture that just fully coats your mouth. Let's go ahead and give this a sip. Oh my God, I just love the aroma on this. Okay, full disclosure, I used to work for this company and I love the master distiller. His name is Johnny Schuler. So maybe I'm a bit biased here, but you know, it's been about 5 years since I worked for this company and oh my gosh, that aroma, it is magnificent. Maybe I'm biased, but frankly, this has also won several awards. So it's also an objective viewpoint as well. Wow, it totally coats my mouth. This is a little bit of a higher proof spirit. It's 43%. So there is a lot of flavor happening right now. Also, I mean, there's great acidity. My mouth is watering right now. I'm getting some melon notes. There's orange blossom. There's a tiny hint of chocolate notes. I'll put a little graphic up about the grapes that are used in this Mosto Verde because each of those grape varieties is adding to the complexity of flavors. I mean, lots of tropical fruit notes, a little bit of hay, there's a little bit of vanilla, lots and lots and lots of layers. This is made from 18 pounds of grapes. I mean, this is high quality. There's nothing else on the market quite like it. Not only that, this is made in the oldest distillery in all of the Americas, meaning it's the oldest distillery in South America, Central, and North America, and it dates back from 1684. There is a ton of heritage in this bottle. It is magnificent. All right, moving on. Like I promised you, we are making a Pisco Sour without any bar tools. So this is something that you can very easily whip up at home. We will use a blender. If you go to Peru and whenever these travel restrictions are lifted, I strongly, strongly urge you to do so. I mean, the country is remarkable. There's so much history there. I'll put up an image of a wonderful book that I read. It's called Last Days of the Incas, if you're interested about history. Honestly, I couldn't put it down. There's, of course, Machu Picchu, so you have to climb that. Okay, but anyways, the reason why I say that is because in Peru, they make all their pisco sours from a blender. So in a sense, this is very, very traditional. This cocktail will make 2 pisco sours. It's better to make 2 pisco sours in a blender versus just one because all the ingredients are better able to integrate with one another. This cocktail will do 3 ingredients. We're doing our Carvedo Pisco Portone, fresh lime juice, some sugar, and I lied, there's a 4th ingredient. The 4th ingredient usually calls for egg white. If you've ever made meringue, you know that egg white will create this like gorgeous frothy texture to whether it's pastries or to cocktails. But today we will not be using egg whites. We're going to be using something called aquafaba. Aquafaba comes from chickpea water. Literally, I just cooked chickpeas last week, and so there was some leftover water, and that's what we're using. So very, very easy. Our ratios today for 2 pisco sours, it'll be 1/2 cup, 1/4 cup, and we'll get to the sugar in just a bit. So let's start with our lime juice. We'll do 1/2 cup of fresh lime juice. I'm sorry, that was 1/4 cup of fresh lime juice. We'll do 1/2 cup, which is 4 ounces of our pisco, 2 ounces per cocktail. Now onto the sugar portion. If you are going to use a simple syrup, a 1-to-1 mixture, 1 part sugar, 1 part water, do the same amount of that you did as lime juice. So you're gonna do 1/4 cup. Now, I had mentioned before that I've made cocktails for a living for the last 10 plus years, and I teach lots of people how to make cocktails, and that my job entails creating cocktail recipes every single day. The reason I say all that is because I get tired of making simple syrup. I gotta tell you, I mean, I'm just human, and I don't like making simple syrup. I don't like the stickiness. I don't like having to remember it. I don't like having to store it. So there is an alternative. If you don't want to make simple syrup as well, hey, I feel you. I mean, nothing wrong with that. We will use castor sugar. So castor sugar, aka baker's sugar, aka superfine sugar, is a superfinely granulated sugar, and we will do 1 teaspoon per cocktail. So that means I'll do 2 teaspoons. Okay, couple things here. The first one is do not use powdered sugar. It is not the same thing as baker's sugar or castor sugar. Powdered sugar often has cornstarch in there. And if you want to know what happens when you mix water and cornstarch, just Google water and cornstarch science experiment. It's actually really cool and really fun, but not for our cocktails. So don't do it. Just stick with castor sugar or superfine sugar. The reason why we're doing that versus regular granulated sugar is because it dissolves immediately. The next part here is adding our aquafaba, which is the chickpea water. Do 1/2 ounce per cocktail. So in this case, I'll do 1 full ounce. Now, I know this doesn't look very pretty. Just bear with me. You're not going to taste it whatsoever. Hey, I am here to show you the real deal, and this is the real deal. I'm not going to cover anything up. It is what it is. The other benefit of using aquafaba is that it is completely vegan. Most pisco sour recipes call for egg whites to create that frothiness, so in this case, you don't have to do that. Finally, we'll add our ice. Keep in mind, this is not a frozen margarita. We do not need to pack this entire thing with ice. We just need enough that's going to melt once we start pulsing, because we don't want any ice left over in this. We just want the cocktail to froth up in the blender, and we want all the ice to melt. So we do want that dilution, but we don't want any leftover ice. So for that, we will do 1 full cup of ice. And you can even see here that the ice is just barely coming up to the top. That's really all you need. You don't need a lot. Another suggestion too, you can see that I'm working with a Vitamix. I understand that not everyone has a Vitamix, and that's okay. If you have a blender that is not as powerful, what I would recommend for you so that you do get all the ice broken up is that you put your ice into a cloth, then you wrap it around, and then you just hit it to break down the ice. So you can just use like a meat mallet, but break that down, and then you can put that ice into your blender just so that you make sure that all the ice fully dissolves. All right, now we're going to pulse a couple times and you'll start to see everything froth up. Okay, this looks great. I'm gonna let it sit here for about 30 seconds just so that everything can begin to settle. If I went ahead and poured right off the bat, which I did do last week, then the first glass that I poured it into got all of the foam and the second one didn't get any foam. And I really wanna make sure that both cocktails pour evenly. So I'm just gonna let this sit for about 30 seconds. Can you see that? It looks good. There was no shaking involved, no bar tools. Pretty awesome. Now, you don't have to use a fine tea strainer. I'm going to because I have one on hand. That'll just catch any ice bits if there's any left over. What this strainer is also doing is it's making sure that the top layer is completely uniform. There's no big bubbles hanging out in there because of the ice bits. It looks just like a velvety blanket laying right on top. Okay, can you all see this? Look how gorgeous this looks. Let me see if I can tilt the camera. Final touch though, we have our bitter. These ones are from Peru. You don't have to have bitters exactly from Peru. If you don't have them, you can use whatever aromatic bitters you have on hand. You can either leave the dashes just like so, or you can grab a toothpick and just gently trace it through the drink. And that is how you make an exquisite Pisco Sour at home with no bar tools. That is delicious, so refreshing. You have to make this at home. Please, please, please make this for yourself. It is awesome. All right, if you liked this video, go ahead and hit like. Also make sure to subscribe so that you see all upcoming content. I upload a new video every Thursday and I hope to see you there. See you next week.